بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا ومولانا محمد وبارك وسلم وصلي عليه. I pray everybody is well, inshallah. We continue today from where we left off yesterday. So we're looking at page number 11, inshallah. Page number 11. So page number 11, we're going to be looking at the purpose. We did touch upon the purpose yesterday, in yesterday's class. So we'll revisit that again. I'll go through it briefly. It must be noted that these various ways of recitation are not mistakes or conflicting versions of the Qur'an. Okay, so we're looking at different qira'at, okay, different dialects, different letters, different words, different pronunciations. So it's not anything that conflicts, like I mentioned yesterday. No two qira'at will conflict with one another. Okay, they are not contradictory, but complementary. So they complement each other, but they don't contradict each other. One of the wisdoms behind these various methods of recitations is to create ease in recitation. Okay, to make it easy for the reciter. As understood from the following hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it has been narrated by Ubay ibn Ka'b that when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam met Jibreel alayhi salam, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned, "Ya Jibreel, inni bu'ithtu ila ummatin ummiyyin minhum al-ajuz." Okay, "O Jibreel, I've been sent to an illiterate nation. Okay, among them are who? Ajuz, elderly people." Okay. So minhum al-ajuz, elderly. Okay, elderly women. والشيخ الكبير, and elderly men. Okay, والغلام, and some are boys. والجارية, girls. Okay, والرجل الذي لم يقرأ كتابا قط, and the man that has never read a book in his life. Okay, so I've been sent to a nation that's illiterate, of old men, old women, you know, boys and girls who have never studied, who have never written, read, who don't understand knowledge, okay, who don't understand reading. How are they going to recite and read, you know, the most comprehensive, you know, masterpiece that we have in our hands, you know, in the form of the Qur'an? How are they going to recite the Qur'an? So Jibreel alayhi salam responded, "Ya Muhammadu, O Muhammad, inna al-Qur'ana unzila ala sab'ati ahrufin." O Muhammad, indeed, okay, the Qur'an was revealed upon 7 ahruf. Okay, so there's numerous ahadith that touch upon this subject about 7 ahruf. So the 7 ahruf are 7 different categories under which all the various ways of recitations can be grouped. A detailed account of this 7 ahruf you can find in the copies that you've studied and read before in your Tuhfat al-Atfal book. Page number 127. Up here. Page number 127 of your Tuhfat al-Atfal book. Okay, I'll just read the 7 types. What are they? If you look at the 7 types on page 128, explanation. the different variations of recitation are based upon 7 variables. Okay. So what's the first one? Okay, اختلاف الأسماء. Okay, the اختلاف, the difference in nouns. Okay, من إفراد وتثنية وجمع أو تذكير أو وتأنيث. So it's the differences between in variations in nouns. Are they either due to number or due to gender differences? And then you've got the examples below. So I'll give you the first example. فأصلحوا بين أخويكم. أخويكم. أخويكم, this means, so make peace between 2 brothers. Okay, so the peace between 2 brothers. And according to Ibn Amir, it can be recited as فأصلحوا بين إخوتكم. Okay, between all of your brothers. So that's one type of difference that you'd find in ahruf. And then you look at number 2 on page 129, variations in tense of a verb. Number 3, wujuhul i'rab. Okay, the i'rab, the vowel variations in the Arabic vowels. Variations based upon omissions and additions. Okay, and naqs was the other. Number 5, variations based upon the placement of words that lead in one recitation may follow in another. For example, وَقَاتَلُوا وَقُتِلُوا. Here the word وَقَاتَلُوا on page number 130. Okay, so I'm going through it quite quick because that's not my subject that I'm teaching, just so that you could watch through this video later on with your Tuhfa book and you'll know where to be looking at. So page number 130, number 5, وَقَاتَلُوا وَقُتِلُوا. Okay, in Surah Al-Imran, verse number 195. According to Hamza and Al-Kisai, the order of the 2 words is the other way around. وَقُتِلُوا وَقَاتَلُوا. So the way it's written in the Mus'haf in one qira'ah is, for example, A is first, B is second. In another qira'ah, B has come before the A has. So these are that's another different type or difference. Number 6, al-ibdal. Okay, variations based upon replacing words or letters. Number 7, the last one, variations based upon dialects of different tribes as a result of fatha, imala, tarqiq, tafkhim, idgham, izhar, and so on. Okay, so these are the saba ahruf that's mentioned in the guide to the Turuk of Hafs. Okay, and you can find more details in your Tuhfat al-Atfal copies. So the Messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned to Jibreel that in my nation, in my ummah, there are people that will struggle with Qur'an. They are very, very weak. So I need it to be easy. Okay, and Jibreel responded, Ya Muhammadu, inna al-Qur'ana unzila ala sab'ati ahrufin. That the Qur'an has been revealed upon the sab'a ahruf. There's 52 variations, and the Prophet ﷺ has recited every single variation. Okay, and then you've got every single qira'ah, every single imam has their own rawis, like I mentioned yesterday. So you have the imam, for example, say Imam Nafi' al-Madani. Imam Nafi' al-Madani, he has 2 students, okay, Qalun and Warsh. Okay, and Warsh, for example, Warsh then is again divided into Turuk. Okay, you have Azraq and then you have Asbahani. Azraq then is further divided again, An-Nihas and Ibn Sayf, okay, if I'm correct. And then that's Azraq. And then Asbahani is further divided again, Al-Mutu'i and Hayatullah, its own Turuk. and then they are divided again. Okay, so this is just in Warsh. Qalun is divided into also into two different turuq, Abu Nashid and Hilwani. So that's just the two turuq from Qalun, and then even they then branch out. So all of these branches, the Quran has so many different variations, and they all, each and every single variation is authentic. And the Prophet ﷺ had the knowledge of all of them and recited in all of them, in all of these turuq. And that's where the turuq lead back to. And this is the only subject, okay, one of the only subject, and probably the only book that can be recited in so many different variations, and every single variation is credible. Okay, so just like in Hafs, you've got Ubaid and Amr, what we're going to be discussing, and then how Ubaid then divides into Abu Tahir, like I mentioned yesterday, and Hashimi, etc., and how Amr then was divided in between Zar'an and Fil. So this we're going to be discussing, inshallah. So but for the question, I think ask the ulama. I'm not an alim. I'm just a student of knowledge, inshallah. So that's the purpose. So the purpose of ahruf and turuq and qira'at is just so that it becomes easy for students once they are studying. My apologies, I'm receiving a. So just to make everything easy for students to learn and to recite the Quran. So it helps those who can't pronounce, like I mentioned yesterday, صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم and صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم or صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم. It makes it easy when you're depending on which area you're from and how your pronunciations are. Okay. If you look at page number 12, conditions of a qira'a sahiha. What are the conditions for a qira'a to be authentic? So I think before I mention this, I'll quickly give you the names of all the qira'a. So it becomes much easier for you to understand. I'll go through it quick, so you can watch the video again and pause and make notes. So first you've got Imam Nafi' al-Madani, the one I've mentioned. Okay, so you got Imam Nafi' al-Madani. So they were approximately 160 years after Hijrah, they passed away. Okay, so Imam Nafi' al-Madani, they're from Medina Sharif. Okay, Madinat Munawwara, and they had two students, okay, which was Qalun and Warsh. Qalun and Warsh. So they are the two students of Imam Nafi' al-Madani. Next, you've got Ibn Kathir, Abdullah Ibn Kathir al-Makki, and he had two students, al-Bizzi and Qumbul. Al-Bizzi and al-Qumbul. Then you got Abu Amr al-Basri, who was approximately 150 years after Hijri. They're all roughly the same time era. Imam Abu Amr al-Basri, the third Imam. And they had two students, Ad-Duri and Susi. Duri and Susi. Next Imam, Ibn Amir al-Shami. Again, roughly the same era, between 100 to 150 years after Hijri, when they passed away. And their two students were Hisham and Ibn Zakwan. Okay, the fifth one, the fifth Imam is the one that we follow, Imam Āṣim. Imam Āṣim bin Abi Najud al-Kufi passed away 127 years after Hijrah. And their two students that you should know by now, which are Shu'bah and Hafs. Okay, next, number 6, Al-Imam Hamza, who was also Kufi. Kufi meaning they were from Kufa. And their two students, Khalf and Khalad. Khalf and Khalad. Number 7, Al-Imam Al-Kisa'i. Number 7, Al-Imam Al-Kisa'i. And their two students were Abu Al-Harith and Duri. Number 8, Al-Imam Abu Ja'far Al-Madani. Al-Imam Abu Ja'far Al-Madani. And their two students, Ibn Wardan and Ibn Jammaz. Number 9, Al-Imam Ya'qub Hadrami. Ya'qub. And their two students were Rawh and Rawais. Rawh with the Ha and Rawais. And the last one is Al-Imam Khalf. Now, Imam Al-Khalf is also known as Khalf Al-Ashir, the 10th one, or Khalf Al-Akhir, Khalf Al-Bazzar. And his two students were Ishaq and Idris. Ishaq and Idris. Now, when you're looking at these names, Khalf al-Ashir, the last Khalf, we've come across this name before. Now here, these are the Imams and the two students under each one. So Khalf al-Ashir, the Imam at the end, he was actually a student before. Okay, now if you look at your notes again, the one that you just written, if you look at Imam Hamza, al-Kufi, underneath him, there were two students, Khalf and Khalad. So Khalf here is the same person who's the Imam later on. So here he was a Rawi, here he was a student, then later on is classified as an Imam with two students, Ishaq and Idris. Okay, now these then are divided further. So each student, like I mentioned in Hafs, you can see on page number 10, how Imam Āṣim, two students, Shu'bah and Hafs, how then Hafs is divided between Ubayd and Amr, and how Ubayd and Amr are further then divided between Al-Hashimi, Abu Tahir, Al-Fil, and Zar'an. Similarly, Warsh is also divided, like I mentioned. Okay, so Warsh, again, Asbahani and Azraq. So Asbahani and Azraq then is divided. Asbahani then is further divided. Okay, same with Qalun is divided between Abu Nasheed and Hilwani. Same with Bizzi is also divided. Kumbal is also divided. Duri is also divided. Susi is also divided. Okay, so each qira'ah then has more students underneath them, and then these students have students, and these students have students, and it just continues, okay, until they are compiled into a book, and kept protected. So these are always known as turuq. These are always known as tariq or path or way or chains, okay, and these are very, very important because they, as we go through the turuq of Hafs, you'll realize how important they are and how you could actually, make mistakes or switch between turuq, or what are the consequences. So it's quite important to know all of this, especially the riwayah you're doing. So same with Hisham and Ibn Zakwan and Shu'ba and Hafs, Ruwais, Rawh, all of them, Ishaq, Idris, every single that Rawi you have, they are divided, okay? And some of them are divided not in just two ways or not just one way, in more than one, okay? Some of them only have one underneath them. Like, for example, Ishaq, it has 3 students. Same with Idris, he has 4 students underneath him. And then they branch out, and continue. So, inshallah, so they're your imams, okay? So now the conditions. Now, all of these different ways that you can recite the Quran, how can we govern this? How can we monitor this? How do we know which are correct, which are authentic, which are not? So there must be some sort of rules. That's when we come to page number 12. In order to differentiate correct recitations from incorrect mistakes, okay, the scholars laid out 3 governing principles. So the first governing principle is what? Arabic grammar. Okay, Quran is an Arabic language. Inna anzalnahu Qur'anan Arabiyya. Indeed, we revealed the Quran in Arabic language. So Arabic is the first one we're looking at here. The recitation must be in accordance with the rules of Arabic grammar. So it can't be contradicting Arabic grammar. So long as its eloquence is supported by a school of thought in Arabic grammar. So meaning, just like in Quran, you got loads of different variations. Same in Arabic grammar and Arabic language. There's loads of different grammarians who actually disagree with one another. Okay, they have different opinions. Okay, so as long as we can back a recitation of the Quran according to a grammarian or school of thought in grammar, it backs it up. That's enough. Yeah. So it doesn't mean that, for example, if I recited the Quran, for example, I recited Maliki Yawmiddin or Maliki Yawmiddin, it must make sense according to some grammarian. It might not necessarily be that every single grammarian agrees to how I recited, but at least there's one grammarian that can back it up. Okay. The next, so the differences between the grammarians over what is more eloquent does not render a recitation incorrect. Okay. In other words, it is not a condition that the variant recitation must be eloquent according to all grammarians. So as long as a school of thought in grammar can back that recitation, not necessarily, or it doesn't need to be an eloquent way. That's not a condition. This condition is based upon the following verse: Inna anzalnahu Qur'anan Arabiyya la'allakum ta'qilun. We have sent it down as an Arabic Quran, meaning in Arabic language, so that you may understand. Surah Yusuf, verse number 2. So that's the first condition. So condition number 1, it can't be against Arabic language. Condition number 2, same on page number 12, Uthmani script. The recitation needs to be in accordance with the script of any one of the copies of the Qur'an that Sayyidina Uthman, okay, the third caliph, sent to different regions. The regions are in the footnotes: Mecca, Medina, Syria, Yemen, Bahrain, Basra, and Kufa. So these were the masahif that Sayyidina Uthman, okay, had written or had asked the companions to write, okay, and sent them out to different locations: Mecca, Medina, Syria, Yemen, Bahrain, Basra, and Kufa. So Sayyidina Uthman sent these to different regions. This written script of the Quran was agreed upon, okay, so it was ijma' of all the companions during the caliphate of Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Okay, so they all had agreed upon this. Okay, now who were the companions that Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu asked to write? Okay, the four companions. Number one, you can write this down. Zayd bin Thabit was the first companion. Zayd bin Thabit. Number two, Abdullah ibn Zubair. Number three, Sa'id ibn al-As with a Sad. Number four, Abdurrahman ibn al-Harith. So these are your four companions that were instructed by the third caliph, Sayyidina Uthman, to compile the masahif, to compile the Quran. The need for uniting the Ummah upon the script of the Quran arose due to the expansion of the Muslim nation. Muslims started expanding, Islam spread, and people became enlightened by Islam and came into Islam from all backgrounds. So they weren't all necessarily Arabs, which led to differences and disputes between new Muslims over correct recitation. So somebody who comes into Islam now, for example, somebody in this day and age, somebody reverts to Islam, comes into Islam, and you start telling them about different madhahib in fiqh and different madhahib, in qira'ah and different a'imma, and they'll be confused, okay, and they won't agree with you. So there was a need to unify, to codify the Quran, okay, to basically give it a unique rasm that all qira'at can be based upon, so it becomes easier. There were several reasons, okay, for these disputes between the Sahaba. Okay, number one, some recitations that were initially permissible had become mansukh, annulled, okay, in the last Ramadan, before the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam returned to Allah. But news of this annulment, okay, did not reach every individual. So when certain qira'at became mansukh, that they are no longer going to be recited, okay, the news couldn't travel as fast enough out for all the companions to understand. So some of the companions were still reciting in the qira'at that were annulled. That's one reason. Number two, B, certain companions would write the tafsir, i.e. commentary. So whilst they're writing the Quran, they would add words into the Quran, which is for their own personal record, not believing that it's Quran, but so that they can understand and comprehend the Quran, of certain words of the Quran, which could be confused as being part of the Quran. Okay? So, for example, I'm making this example up so that you understand why would somebody add a word to the Quran. They weren't adding the word into the Quran. But say, for example, I said to you that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, guide us upon the straight path. Guide us upon the straight path. So what you do then, and then when I'm explaining to you, guide us meaning Muslims, you add that in. Guide us Muslims upon the straight path. Ihdina siratal mustaqim. So you added a word in there, guide us Muslims. which is not part of the word Muslim, is not part of the Quran. It's not in part of this verse. But you've added this part into the verse just so that you could understand. The guide us doesn't mean guide everybody. Okay? So we're talking about as Muslims, for example, or guide us upon the straight path, path of the messenger, path of the previous prophets, path of, and you start elaborating. But you write it in Arabic or in the language of the Quran and into the same sentence. So then it becomes confusing once that written form is passed down in generation. Somebody might think, no, this is also part of the Quran. See, the new Muslims were unaware of the different variations and thus argued with those who recited different from them, which at times led to people calling each other kafir. Okay, so it became a very serious matter, when calling somebody else a kafir, somebody calling somebody else a disbeliever. So it's quite serious. So Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu gathered the 4 companions together and said, okay, we're gonna rewrite the Quran out into the masahif that everybody agrees upon, and then we're gonna send them out to all the areas. So each area would have to follow that mushaf. Okay. The companions agreed to unite upon one script, okay, with the intention of creating unity amongst the Muslims, as well as stopping people from reciting that which was annulled. Okay. Although the script chosen was the language of Quraysh, was from the language of Quraysh, the absence of dots and vowels allowed recitations based upon other permissible dialects. So there was no dots. So for example, Zumara could be read as Rumara, for example, or the example that we gave yesterday on page number the examples I gave yesterday in regard to ikhtilafat, nun shizuha, nun shiruha. Remember the example I gave yesterday? The ra in one way of reciting and zay in the second way of reciting. So nun shizuha, like Ibn Amir. So you're reading with a zay with a dot. So in the actual mushaf, there would be no dots. So you would have to work the dots out. You would have to work out, is this a ra? Is this a zay? That's your job as a reciter. So that's what would confuse new Muslims. Thus, the variant recitations were not abolished, but rather they were preserved in the script. So all the various recitations, they were preserved. Why? Because the way the Quran was written, the script that was written, every single recitation could be recited, okay, upon this rasm, upon this code. Therefore, the second condition is the Qur'an needs to be according to the script of one of the copies of Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu. So how many did he send out? Makkah, Medina, Syria, Yemen, Bahrain, Basra, and Kufa. So it has to be according to one of these 7 masahif, okay, that were sent out. For example, the verse 100 in Surah At-Tawbah reads as وَأَعَدَّ لَهُمْ جَنَّاتٍ تَجْرِي تَحْتَهَا الْأَنْهَارُ. Okay, تحتها. Look at this word here. تحت, ta the fatha, تحتها الأنهار. So that's the verse in Surah At-Tawbah. However, according to the recitation of Ibn Kathir, the verse is read with the addition of min. So according to Ibn Kathir, okay, you can recite this verse as وَأَعَدَّ لَهُمْ جَنَّاتٍ تَجْرِي مِن تَحْتِهَا الْأَنْهَارُ. Okay, so min, for those who understand a little bit of Arabic like myself, min would give the word that follows it a kasra. Okay, so min tahti, ti, min tahti hal anhar. And the verse above, tahtahal anhar, without a min. So now this one's got an extra min in there. Okay, this one has an extra min. So this recitation is valid because the mushaf that was sent to Makkah, Makkatul Mukarrama, is written with the word min in this verse. So the mushaf that was sent to Makkah had this word min in there. So Ibn Kathir al-Makki, his qira'ah, it's perfectly fine. Yeah, it's according to a mushaf. So there were 7. Okay, so each mushaf did vary, and the variations were to preserve all the qira'at, not that it was a mistake. So that's your second condition. Arabic grammar, number 1. Uthmani script, any one of the Uthmani script. Let me just quickly look at the questions before I move on. Okay, first question. Salam, I have another question. The word insan, okay, is written with an alif mad. Alif mad in the Uthmani script. But in the Indo-Pakistan, it is written with an alif. I don't understand the question. I understand what you're referring towards, the difference between the Pakistani type and the Uthmani script. The Pakistani type of Quran is also Uthmani script. So it's not. Look, the first condition was what? Arabic grammar. Second condition was what? It has to be according to Uthmani script. It has to be. Yeah, so that's also Uthmani script. So it's not Pak script. Nothing such as Pakistani script. Yeah, you could say it's Pakistani font, but not script. Yeah, Pakistani font. If you can, there's a number on the screen. If you can just take a picture of both or screenshot of the Pakistani font of the word An-Nas and the Uthmani font of An-Nas and send it to me now, I'll be able to look at it and give you an answer. Indo-Pak. So this question. So did Sayyidina Uthman create Tajweed, or how did Tajweed come about, i.e. harajats, dots, etc., and there wasn't any in the beginning? No, this came way after. This came way after. We'll talk about this later on, inshallah. Probably tomorrow, no, the day after tomorrow, we'll come to this. But Sayyidina Uthman, radiallahu anhu's time, there was no dots, okay, no fatha, dhamma, and kasra. These came afterwards. And the last question: how many ulama say that we should stick to reciting in a riwayah which is common for people in an area, in a particular area? Was it also the case after Sayyidina Uthman distributed the masahif that they needed to do this? No, there was no condition. There's no condition that you must recite according to the people that you're living in. That's like saying, I must follow the Hanafi madhab because everybody here follows Hanafi, I must be like them. No, that's not a condition. Okay, there's no condition. The conditions that are, which we're discussing at the minute, we've done 2 so far. Arabic grammar, number 1, and number 2 has to be according to Uthmani script. They're the 2 conditions. And the third condition has a sound chain. Okay, it has a sound chain back to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, so it's a mutawatir chain back to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They're your 3 conditions for a qira'ah to be sahih, and you're free to recite in any qira'ah you enjoy, you like, you recite it. Okay, like I've mentioned in my previous lessons, I enjoy the qira'ah of Susi, for example. I enjoy it. Why? It sounds nice. It's very mellow, and I enjoy it. So I enjoy reciting in that way. So there's no issues in regards to which qira'ah you recite in, or depending on the audience. Every qira'ah should be studied to preserve the knowledge. Like the 52 turuq that we're going to be looking at, it's not because that you are reciting every single tariq. No. You're reciting according to one tariq, which is of Imam Shatibi, for example, which I'll discuss later. I don't want to jump ahead of ourselves. But it's not that you can't do any other way. You can do, but it's all about preserving the sacred knowledge. Okay, preserving the Quran. You know, inna wa Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran that we reveal the dhikr wa inna lahu lahafidhun, and we protect it. And how does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect it? Allah ta'ala protects this Quran in the hearts of the ummah, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's why it's important. But we will talk about switching between riwayas and turuq over the next couple of pages, inshallah. Another question. Assalamu alaikum. The dots of the letters, such as those on ba and ya, were these not written in the Uthmani Mus'haf? No, these came on afterwards. I will talk about Uthmani, the Masahif in detail in the next couple of days, inshallah. So let's look at the sound chain on page number 13. Okay, another thing I'll mention here that's important. If the Mus'haf was written in a certain fashion or certain manner, for example, Sayyidina Uthman, the Masahif he sent out, one had an alif, a silent alif. That silent alif can never be removed, even though you don't recite it. Okay, so no taghyir, no change can happen to the Mus'haf itself. The text cannot be changed. Quran, the physical form of Quran, can never ever be changed. The way it was written, that's how it's written. Full stop. The qira'ah, the recitation, must fit on this Mus'haf. Okay, so the qira'ah must be according to that Mus'haf. That's what the conditions. The first condition, that's according to Arabic grammar. Second condition is according to the script of Sayyidina Uthman, any one of the scripts. Okay, so wherever there's a silent letter, it's a silent letter, you know, but you don't change it. For example, if you're not reciting like I don't have a Mus'haf with me here. Say for example, I'm not reading okay, Alif Lam Shamsiyya and Qamariyya. Okay, Alif Lam Shamsiyya and Qamariyya. Qamariyya we read, for example, Wal Qamar, Wal Qamar, Wal Qamari idha talaha, Wal. In the desert alif, we don't read it. So it could be that we don't need to write it down now. Let's take all the silent ones out. Let's make the Quran a bit shorter. So rather than being this thick Mus'haf, it'll become very small because half of the letters and are silent. There's so many silent letters, it's unbelievable in the Quran. We'll remove all of them, make it more smaller so that our students don't get scared when they see the Quran. So when we teach in our madrasa, students won't run away from us. Can we do that? No, we can't. Okay, so the way the Mus'haf is written, according to Sayyidina Uthman, it cannot be changed. So it is not permissible to change the written form of the Quran. You cannot change. Okay, so the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked the Sahaba to write, okay, in a particular manner, particular way, every single letter in the Quran. That was under the instruction of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, so the Sahaba wrote the Quran. This is before Sayyidina Uthman made or compiled or gathered together the 7 Masahif. The Prophet ﷺ was the one who instructed the companions to write the Quran down in a particular way. And then the Prophet ﷺ taught its various recitations, its variant recitations, its different recitations. Yes, you could recite it as Wadduha. Yes, you could also recite it as Wadduhay. Yeah? You could recite it as Walal Akhirah. 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 So this the Prophet ﷺ taught. Yeah? Maliki Yawmiddin. Maliki Yawmiddin. Without the alif, with the mad. Really short. Malik. So this is the Prophet ﷺ taught the companions after instructing them how to write it. So the written form of the Mus'haf can never ever be changed. Okay, and Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, they mentioned that it is haram. Okay, it is haram to do what? Ikhtilaf of the Rasm Usmani. So the Rasm or the Khat of the Masahif of Sayyidina Uthman. Okay, it is haram for you to go against that. It's haram for you to change that. The written form, haram. Okay, that's even the waw, alif, the ya, which is silent, that you're not reading as well. Like Musa, Musa, Mu, Seen, and you're reading a sa. So Seen with a kali, zabar, vertical fatha, or a small alif saghira. But it's got a ya there as well. Why not Musi? Okay, so why don't we read every single thing? Like any silent letter. So they mention that any of the silent letters you cannot change, you cannot delete from the Quran, and any other word from the Quran. So that's the rasm of Uthmani that we have to, every qira must adhere to that. Let's move on. Time's running very, very short. We've got a lot to cover. Okay, sound chain. Page number 13, sound chain. The recitation must have a sound chain of transmission back to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Most scholars have mentioned that it is a condition for this chain to be mass transmitted. Not just one person in the chain. There has to be loads, so many, that it is impossible for them to agree upon a lie. It's impossible for them to fabricate. Okay, mutawatir. Okay, so it has to be with tawatur. It has to be so many at each chain. So, for example, I say that I was told that milk is white. So it can't just be me saying it. There has to be like 10,000 people. Okay, loads and loads and hundreds. They all say, you know, it was told to us that milk is white. Then the next generation, oh, who told me? Amr. Okay, ask Amr. Amr says, yes, I was told milk is white. And there's a whole clan of them as well. So each generation, each link, there's so many that it is impossible for them to agree upon a lie. By mass transmission, they mean that there must be a very large number of narrators in every generation of the chain, to the extent that a sound mind cannot conclude that this is not possible, okay, for all of them to collude upon to join on a particular fabrication. Page number 14. If a recitation fails in any of these conditions, so 3 conditions, what were they? Arabic language, Uthmani script, and number 3, mutawatir, famous, so many people in that chain that it is impossible for them to agree upon a lie, a fabrication, or even a mistake. If a recitation fails in any of these conditions, it is classed as irregular. Okay, shadh. Imam Ibn al-Jazari, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he writes in his poem At-Taybatu Nashr, okay, he mentions فَكُلُّ مَا وَافَقَ وَجْهَ نَحْوِي وَكَانَ لِلرَّسْمِ احْتِمَالًا يَحْوِي وَصَحَّ إِسْنَادًا هُوَ الْقُرْآنُ فهذه الثلاثة الأركان وحيثما يختل ركن أثبيتي شذوذه لو أنه في السبعة. So they mention فكل ما وفق وجه نحوي وكان للرسم yahwi, whatever is according to any opinion in Arabic grammar and holds the prospect of being in accordance with the Uthmani script. Wasahha, and it is correct or sound, isnadan, in its chain. Huwa al-Qur'an, it is the Qur'an. فَهَذِهِ الثَّلَاثَةِ, and these are 3 al-arkan, okay, the 3 pillars. these three pillars must be met, must be complete. وحيثما يختل ركن أثبتي, whenever a pillar is faulty, then establish. أثبتي, establish what? شذوذه لو أنه في السبعة, that it is established that it is irregular, meaning shadh. Okay, even if it's from the famous seven, meaning from the main famous seven Qur'a. So this is in regards to a recitation that is shadh. Okay, so shadh means irregular. It is weak in any one of these three. Okay, so what's the hukm for this? Now, shadh qira'at are compiled. So, like we mentioned that Shatibi talks about the seven qira'at. Imam Shatibi. Imam Ibn Jazari added the 3, 10. He talks about all 10. He's compiled all 10 of them. So, after these 10, these are the ashara al-qira'at that are mutawatir. Okay? That are so famous, it is impossible for anybody to agree upon a lie, okay, in any single chain. Okay, after this there are other qira'at. Okay, according to some books there are 4, according to some books there are more than 4. In some places they've actually compiled the qira'at as well. They've also been compiled, written in books that you can go away and study as well. But why did they compile them? Why did they preserve them? So let's look at the hukm. So the hukm of shadh qira'at, okay, the ulama have gathered unanimously, they agree upon that a shadh qira'ah, if it doesn't come under these 3 arkan that Imam Ibn Jazari has mentioned in Taybat al-Nashr, you cannot read this qira'ah in salah or outside salah. You can't recite this Qur'an. You can't recite this dialect. It is shadh. It is impermissible. Okay, so you can't actually recite this qira'ah. So this is the jumhur ulama, majority. Okay, not even majority, ijma', gathering of all the ulama. They all gather upon this opinion that you cannot recite this in salah. If you recite this in salah, your salah will not be accepted. So what's the benefit of this then? That's the hukm. So why do we have this shadh? Why not just delete it? So there's a couple of reasons for this. Number one, if it's what's the opposite of mutawatir? Mutawatir means there's so many people that it is impossible for them to agree upon a lie. An opposite of that would be khabar wahid. Okay, so khabar al-ahad, which means in the chain there's only one person. So for example, there's 10 people who narrate something to another 10 people. They narrate it to one person. Then that one person narrates it to 10 people again. Then 10 people narrate it to 10 people. So in that chain, there's a weak chain, or not weak, weak, da'if. Okay, there's a khabar al-wahid, khabar al-ahad. So one person, 2 people that could have united onto a lie. Okay, so the ulama say that you can't recite this in salah, but you can take shari'i opinions. You can take shari'i rulings from it, rulings of fiqh, masail. We can use this to answer certain questions. Okay, and the reason why they say that is because it's very similar, because it's still Qur'an. We're not denying that it's not Qur'an. Okay, it's just that it's weak. It's not fitting on one of the 3 pillars. So it's basically like, hadith. That's a, khabar wahid as well. A hadith that is khabar wahid. And Qur'an, riwayah or qira'ah, that's also khabar wahid. So do we not utilize hadith that is khabar wahid? Yes, we do. Even though it has one weak, da'if chain somewhere, less in numbers. So I don't mean da'if as in somebody's fabricated it, or somebody was a liar, or somebody was a known fabricator. I'm talking about the numbers were weak. There was less people. So it became less. So does that mean that we leave the hadith? No, we don't leave the hadith. So similarly, we don't leave the Quran. You could use it for taking rulings from. Okay, so this is the Jamhur opinion now, majority of the ulama, except for the ulama of except for the Imam, the ulama of, including Imam Shafi'i, the madhab of Imam Shafi'i. So Imam Shafi'i, they mention that they don't agree with this and they don't take it. Okay, so they said this is mansukh. Okay, so this is anything that is mansukh, nullified, they don't follow. Okay, the last point with this I'll mention that وقال Abu Ubaid al-Maqsad, okay, the main reason, the main purpose of the Qira'ah al-Shadh is what? Min al-Qira'at al-Shadh is what? Tafsir al-Quran. It is the explanation of the Quran. It elaborates, it gives you more meaning to the Quran. Okay, so for that reason, you can study Shadh Qira'at, but you can't recite it in Salah, you can't recite it in Mahafid and to other people, inshallah. Hope that makes sense. The brother who asked me about Surah or the word An-Nas has sent me the screenshots. خلق الإنسان من علق. And in the other Mus'haf, yeah, okay, so now, I don't know if everyone can see this clearly. It's quite clear. So if you look at this here now, Al-Insan, Sin, Fatha, Alif, Noon. Insan. That's one way of writing, which is correct. Okay, so that's one Mus'haf that Sayyidina Uthman sent out. Okay, the other way, if you look at this one now, Al-In, Sana, Sin, Fatha, Sa, Noon, Fatha, Na. But there's a little Alif Saghira. See this little Alif Saghira? Alif Saghira is recited as Harakatain. So Alif Saghira, you can recite it as Harakatain. So Insan. In recitation, it's identical. But in written form, it's different. And both are correct. Yeah? Both are correct. So not one is right and the other is incorrect. There's no ikhtilaf between them two. So if I was going to recite this, okay, I'll spell it out. So how would I spell this one? Hamza, Kasra, Noon, Sakina, In, Sin, Fatha, Alif, Saghira, the small Alif, Sa, yeah, Sin, Fatha, Alif, Saghira, Sa, Biharakatain, okay, Biharakatain with two haraka, then Noon, Fatha, Na, Insana. Okay, how am I gonna spell this one out for a student? So here, again, Hamza, Kasra, Noon, Sakina, In, Sin, Fatha, Alif, Sa, the Noon, Fatha, Na, Insana. Same thing, there's no difference, okay, in recitation. So both are correct and both are according to the Uthmani script. Barakallahu feek, inshallah. I've gone over time, but wanted to cover the next page as well. Okay, let's do this page number 15 as well quickly, inshallah. Page number 15, switching between the variant recitations. Somebody already asked this question in regards to Qira'at. Okay, so let's look at this. So switching between the variant recitations, the following is a summary of Imam Ibn al-Jazri's view in Al-Nashr. It is not permitted to switch between variant recitations in speech, which is connected in grammar and meaning. So meaning, imagine you're reciting one way, and then halfway you switch to a different way. And the previous qira'ah and the previous portion of the ayah and the next portion of the ayah that you've connected, okay, they are connected in grammar and meaning. If they are, you cannot switch. Okay, which is connected in grammar and meaning, and know if it distorts the meaning or grammar. Okay, if it distorts the meaning in grammar, you can't recite in that fashion. Imam Ibn al-Jazari quotes Imam al-Nawawi rahimahumullah as the following. Let's look at what they've said. If a reciter starts recitation with a qira'ah of a specific imam from the seven, then it is necessary not to deviate from that qira'ah as long as the speech is connected, meaning the speech is connected with what he has recited previously. Okay, in meaning or grammar, then he can switch. Okay, if it's not connected in meaning or grammar, then you can switch. Recite in another qira'ah from the seven, but it is preferred to continue, that qira'ah in that sitting, in that fashion, one fashion, rather than switching and changing. For example, verse number 37 from Surah Baqarah can be recited in the following two ways. Look at the first way. According to Imam Ibn Kathir, according to Ibn Kathir, فَتَلَقَّى آدَمَ مِنْ رَبِّهِ كَلِمَاتٌ فَتَابَ عَلَيْهِ. Okay, that's the first way. So look at the method I recited. فَتَلَقَّى آدَمَ. آدَمَ. Mim has a fatha. مِنْ رَبِّهِ كَلِمَاتٌ. كَلِمَاتٌ. Then فَتَابَ عَلَيْهِ. This is Surah Baqarah, approximately verse 30, 35, 37, roughly. Open your Mus'haf so you can have a look at it, inshallah, after lesson. فَتَلَقَّى آدَمَ مِنْ رَبِّهِ كَلِمَاتٌ. Tun. Okay, so here Adama. If somebody recites Adama according to Ibn Kathir, then he must recite Kalimatun, also marfu according to Ibn Kathir. What you can't do is mix. You can't recite فَتَلَقَّى آدَمَ مِنْ رَبِّهِ كَلِمَاتٍ. No. You can't read tin and you read ma before. And look at the box below. According to the rest of the seven imams, A'imma, with a dhamma on the meme and a kasra on the ta. So they recite it as how? فَتَلَقَّى آدَمُ مِنْ رَبِّهِ كَلِمَاتٍ فَتَابَ عَلَيْهِ. Okay, that's Hafs also. So the qira'ah that we are known for, that we are studying, Hafs an Imam Āṣim, is also Adamu and it's Kalimatin. Okay, so but Ibn Kathir recites it as Adama and Kalimatun. What you can't do is mix. Okay, because Kalimat is connected with Adam in grammar and in meaning. If a person decided to mix the two variant recitation and recite both words with a Dhamma, then that would be incorrect, as that would be switching between the variant recitations in one sentence. Likewise, if a person does the opposite. Let's look on the other side. However, this is what relates to us now. Page number 16. However, since many scholars have written that it is impermissible to switch between variant recitations within the turuq during recitation, a reciter must stick to the tariq they start with. Okay, Sheikh Ali al-Dabba', okay, a great Egyptian scholar, a great imam in qira'ah, heavyweight, mentions in the preamble of his book Sarihun Nas, that the purpose of writing this book, meaning he writes that the purpose that he wrote Sarihun Nas, okay, which is on turuq, is why? Due to the mixing of turuq done by reciters at his time. So meaning the Qur'a, whilst he was around, okay, which is way before us, a couple of decades ago, people were reciting in different turuq and mixing them up. For example, if somebody recited وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْكَ وَمَا أُنزِلَ مِن قَبْلِكَ. Incorrect. So I've mixed two different turuq, two different tariq. Okay, one is of qasr, one is of tool, which you can't do. So there must be consistency. You must be consistent. You must recite in one tariq and only in one tariq, inshallah. So let's look at, if you look at your Jazariya, those who've got your Jazariya copies, just make a note here. Look at and study verse number 31 in Jazariya, which is, I'll tell you what page it's on as well. Page number 55. Page number 55. Okay? So when you get time, go through your Jazariya and let's look what Imam Ibn Jazari mentions. وَاللَّفْظُ فِي نَظِيرِهِ كَمِثْلِهِ. Okay? So we studied this in Jazariya. And every letter, every word, okay, in the Qur'an, okay, must be recited like it's mithl. Okay, so if you got one word or one mad, and then you have another mad, you got to recite this mad kamithli, like the one before it. You can't just change and now I'm going to recite different. Yeah, now I'm going to do this now I'm going to do that now. Okay, so you can't change, you can't chop and distort the tariq, because each qira'ah has been recited, you know, with tawatur, with every with tawatur and with every how shall I put it, honesty through every generation to preserve, okay, the qira'ah, and you can't be reciting and mixing it all up and changing the turuq. So وَلَفْظُ فِي نَظِيرِهِ كَمِثْلِ, and every letter, every word, when amongst its like, when you find a similar one like it, should be recited just like it, can't be changed, meaning consistency, meaning, you know, being uniform in a uniform manner. Okay, so now two questions. Can we mix qiraat up as we wish, like the brother asked before? Answer is no, you can't mix them if they're connected in meaning and grammar. Can we mix turuq up as we wish? The answer is no, we can't mix the turuq up, neither. You must understand each one and follow each one to perfection, inshallah. And we come to an end for today's lesson, inshallah. Tomorrow we'll look at the actual turuq, actual chains, okay, and who are the ulama in these blessed chains. And then after that, inshallah, we begin with the takbir of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allahu Akbar, on page number 22. And inshallah, there's a lot to comprehend, a lot to learn. This is just basic the background. So if you are confused, my sincere apologies. If you got any more further questions, the number on the screen, just message me, and when, no promises, but when I get a chance, I'll respond to your questions. Assalamu alaikum. The daughters of letters such as those on ba and ya, are these not written? No, they weren't written. Any other questions? Many ulama said that we state written riwayah. Yeah, we looked at this. So basically, no, as long as if they're connected with the previous in grammar or meaning, we can't mix them up. Okay, but it doesn't mean that we don't study qiraat. We should study qiraat. We should still study all the different variations of recitation, inshallah. Jazakallah khair for your time. I don't want to hold you up too much. I need to do some work for Darul Qur'a, and inshallah I shall speak to you all tomorrow. If there's any further questions that you've got, you're not sure on, just message the number on the screen. Barakallah feekum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.